if this thing is still packing any kind of a punch, maybe we'll see a little bit here.
In Colorado?
I wouldn't bet the farm on it, but
Okay.
you know, it might not be worth, you know, might not hurt. Just take a look outside later tonight.
Or if you have
Camera,
relatives
take
a bit
picture.
further north, maybe?
Yeah, relatives further north. Yeah, if you've got relatives further north, that'd be interesting. No, just you want darkness.
Just dark.
I think the moon's kind of big though.
It is really big
Yeah.
right now.
Okay. Oh yeah. So that's gonna screw things up. So you know you take what your hand.
It's
environment. Do what you can.
Do what you can.
What did you?
We're approaching G2. So we just hit G1. We are approaching G2.
What does that mean?
So what are the G's?
It's like hurricane
We
level.
like
It's
to call this
intensity of
G.
difficult.
No, we don't call it G.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, so we've got scales for different phenomena, 1 through 5. Just like we modeled it back in 2000 after this accuracy of hurricane, the wind, and so Cat 1 through Cat 5, where the tornadoes, you have 1 through F5. So we said, okay, 1 through 5. G is for geomagnetic storm. So G1 is a minor storm. G5 is an extreme storm. You have to say it like that. So right now we're sitting at a 1. We're edging towards a 2, so we might see a 2 in the next couple hours. Right now, we think the maximum that we could expect from this is maybe a 3, which is minor, moderate, strong. So we'll see. We'll see if it gets there. The type of phenomena that produce this event is not the kind we normally expect the biggest things from. So, but you know, it should be decent, especially if you're in the northern latitudes.
What does it interfere with?
Oh, well, a variety of things, beginning with pigeons. So once you get to, actually less than G1, pigeons start getting lost. So racing pigeons get lost at G1. And if you have spent $1 million or $2 million on a pigeon, which is the highest priced pigeon sold for $2 million, and you race them and you bet on them, and you have a whole industry based on betting on pigeon races.
So you have to pay
Because,
attention to
yes, so you have to pay attention to this.
Hold on to your
But
pigeons.
for the rest of us who don't raise pigeons, the thing we worry about, and the people we talk to are the power grid, because when this thing comes from the sun, this blob of plasma is carrying a magnetic field with it that interacts with Earth's magnetic field, and that's how you know it's right. You hear that, it hits Earth, Earth's magnetic field, and it starts our magnetic field oscillating. It's pulsating, and that fluctuating magnetic field is just like a generator. It induces current on long metal things like power lines or pipelines or railroad tracks. And so our power industry has to concern themselves with extra power that shows up where they didn't expect it to be. Sounds like a benefit, like, hey, free power. But no, we're not really built for that. You know, it's like if you're in your car and you're driving, you're like, this is really cool. And then you get an extra boost of speed, but now you're going 400 miles an hour. You're not really built for that. So that's a bad thing. So you want to bleed off that speed. And the power company wants to put that energy in places where it won't hurt anything, any of their stuff. So they bring capacitor banks online, they back off production, they do things to mitigate the impact of that, and that's what happens during these times. So we get on the phone to the grid once we hit a certain level, G3, and we call the entire North American power grid, us and Canada. We say, hey look, storm's here, this is what we expect over the next few hours, and we've already told them 2 days ago this thing was coming, so they should be in the mindset of get ready. Because what they have to do is they have to balance profit and grid stability. They want to make money, but they don't want to crash and burn. So they're balancing it. And when these things happen, they're all about stability. Don't worry about profit later. They just want to keep the lights on. And so we've spent 15 to 20 years working with them to help them understand these storms, to prepare for them, and then they turn around and build equipment and infrastructure to mitigate the effects of this on the grid. So we had a very big storm in May 24. Wasn't by far not the biggest, but it was a decent storm. And you know, they kept the grid stable because they had put in the effort and time and money to make it that way.
And you guys did a good job communicating.
Well, we did. We tried. Thank you.
So 2 questions. How far in advance can you know this is coming? And then how often do you hit G3 and above? In a year span, let's just
Oh,
say.
okay. So we know it's coming, we can know it's coming up to 3 days in advance for the slower ones.
Okay.
But what we know is, here comes a plasma blob, but we don't know how strong the storm's gonna be, because that's impacted by the magnetism and its orientation inside that cloud of plasma. We don't know that, we don't have the science yet to understand what that looks like until it's about 45 minutes away or less. So we're like, okay, it's coming. It could be the end of the universe or just a bump. Then when it hits a satellite about 1 million miles from Earth, there's a couple out there now, we get our first look at what the magnetic field looks like. And that's when we can say, uh-oh. And so we saw this one and we're like, okay, it's not a uh-oh or a it's kind of a so, you know, we're like, okay, that's not bad. So that's how we know. And then how often do they occur? We got a great chart on the side here that talks about that. So the type that we're experiencing, like right now we're at a KP of 5, which is the index. And KP is for planetary, a very, very long German word that I'm not even going to try and pronounce, but the Germans invented an index called the KP index, planetary K index. And that's what we use as our kind of gauge for where things are, and that maps to a G level. So KP5 is G1. You get about 1,700 of those
In
per
a
solar cycle, per 11-year solar cycle.
Is there a German word on that word?
No, unfortunately, no.
I speak some German, so.
Oh, you would love it. Look up, when you get home, do GFZ Potsdam, P-O-T-S-D-A-M, and that is also a combination of long German words. That means
They
they
like to
study
compound
geomagnetic
Well, even
indices.
in weather, they have the